We're going to be having Scott Rupp, the founding general partner at BITKRAFT, as our moderator for this one, followed by Fernando Dellepiane, the CEO and founder at Vermut, Lawton Smith, the co-founder and CEO at Literal, Emily Yim, the CEO and co-founder at Superbloom, and Dave Aho, the co-founder at Karate Combat as well. In just a few minutes, we'll be ready with all of our speakers as well. So once again, a round of applause for them, please.
With mittens, I'm missing, wishing, man, listen, I glisten like sun and water while fishing. Bust the move in this word, serve words with nerve embedded. I said it, word, damn, you nerd, man, you heard. Coming from the town of Illy and alleys are full of Phillies and rallies. Suckers get silly and Sally, them found in alleys and rallies. Really? So here we go now.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on day 2. This might be our first panel with a IT snafu, so bear with us here. We have some supporting materials we may not be able to pull up. But so we're here to talk about applied game mechanics, and I want to situate this idea with everybody a little bit first. So a lot of times we talk about games as an interesting place to invest from a VC perspective because it's where culture changes first, it's where technology changes first, but it's also where business models tend to change first and where product design tends to innovate first. And so we've developed this thesis that a lot of other verticals besides the game industry itself can benefit from game design principles. And the group of people we have up here with us today represent part of our portfolio that expresses that thesis. So we've got a great, diverse crew of companies here to introduce you to. I'd like to start there. Starting with her, if you guys could each say who you are and what you're doing and give a sense of the products you're building.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Is this working? Yeah. Fernando, I'm the co-founder of Vermut. I'm the CEO as well. In Vermut, we focus on older adults, so we're a social platform that enables older adults to make meaningful connections, social connections in the digital world, but the end goal is for them to meet in real life, and in that way erasing kind of the unwanted loneliness in the senior society.
Great. My name's Lawton Smith. I'm with Literal. I'm the co-founder CEO. And Literal is a reading engagement platform that visualizes the conversation in books to present reading in a very different format that is much more accessible to essentially a generation of learners that are growing up on screens, right? The same learners that we want gaming, we also want reading, and that's why Literal is here, to help do that.
Hi, my name is Emily Yim. I'm CEO and co-founder of Superbloom. At Superbloom, we create lifestyle entertainment primarily for women around their hobbies in real life. And I come from a mobile gaming background, so I'm pretty familiar with the gamification, and I look at it really from the gaming angle. And we're building a decoration hybrid game and app for women globally.
David Aho here from Karate Combat, co-founder and Web3 lead. Karate Combat is the first in real life sports league that's governed and gamified by a token.
Thank you all. So let's give a couple of definitions maybe before we get into some of the questions, and this is what we were hoping to show on the screen, but I'll do this verbally. So what do we mean by gamification? Gamification is the craft of deriving all the fun and engaging elements found in games and applying them to real world or productive activities. So that's what we mean. And I think, you know, one of the things that the games industry has been good at is a process called human-focused design as opposed to functional design. And the idea behind human-focused design is that it's a process that optimizes human motivation in a system. And it remembers that people in a system have feelings, insecurities, and reasons why they want or do not want to do certain things, and therefore optimizes their feelings, motivations, and engagement, right? As opposed to, you know, here's a website that does X. We're trying to sort of take a human through a psychological journey engaging with the product. So, okay, we got it up on the screen. Great. Okay, so let's jump to the next slide. I have my clicker here. Sorry for the IT high-wire act here. So here is a framework that encapsulates this. This is the Octalysis framework for gamification and behavior design. And you can see the elements of this framework. And I think what's kind of intriguing about it is the motivations of a user of a piece of software. You can kind of organize them along a right brain axis, which tends to be things like social motivations, creative motivations, intrinsic motivations, or also a left brain axis, which tends to be about extrinsic motivations, right? These can be things like logic or ownership or economic incentives. You can also slice this framework by, white hat motivations on the top half of the chart. These are sort of more positive motivators, or black hat gamification levers, which are more sort of negative in their basis. So with that as kind of our context, maybe I'll just click back to here while we talk. I wanted to jump in and sort of ask each of the panelists here if they could sort of run through the specific gamification elements that they are incorporating already or intending to incorporate within their products. Ver, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, why not? I guess what we've done, we're two founders, by the way. Enrique is more, I guess, left side brain. And what we've done is we started off with the idea of making the platform as addictive as possible, because the end goal is really good. So we know that if they get addicted to the platform, everything in their life and the life of somebody older than 60, let's say, is going to improve. So we started off by giving them kind of vanity features in which they get kind of badges in their profile to make them feel better than others. That's something that they really engage with. Later on, we realized a lot of people doesn't cut it just with a badge, so they actually want to build things in the platform and be leaders. So we gave them the possibility to create their own content. And that brings a lot of things to the table, because once they create something in the platform, they feel a lot better than the rest. But what we've noticed is if we take that away, let's say somebody creates an activity 1 month that is really successful, so they get a feedback loop that drives them crazy on dopamine, and then the month after that, we take it out because that person didn't create anything. So what happens is they come to us and say, like, why do I'm not having this batch of creator anymore? Why is this? And it's like, you have to be consistent. So I guess that is more the black hat side. But it works really well. And for another example of it is the side of the social influence they get out of, for example, if you book something in our platform and you have tons of friends, they all are going to get a push notification, and they notice that. And they get a kick out of, like, because I booked this activity or this trip, everybody else is booking it. So I'm the one making this happen. So I guess these type of things are the ones that make people come more often.
And I think what's interesting about your audience in particular, like, this is the silver economy, older people who did not necessarily grow up as gamers, right? So these are not engagement patterns that they're just embracing in the context of a different product. It seems to be like a more fundamental product design that lands regardless of demographic or prior experience with it, right? The idea of like senior people engaging in UGC, I think, is probably one that nobody would have thought was realistic. But what are your kind of, creator ratios in Vermut?
Like, the good thing about this feature, it surprised us as well. We started off with almost 7% when we were lower amount of people active on the platform. Now it's in 5%. But you have to think that, like, social platforms such as TikTok maybe have 2% of people creating content, and that means somebody making a dance in a video. This is people maybe opening up their houses to play cards, or to do a dinner. So that's amazing. The key factor is making it really easy for them to actually build that activity in the platform, and later on giving tons of feedback loops for them to feel really rewarded for that risk taking of jumping into creating something in the platform. And that makes them be seen by the rest of the community, and the FOMO kicks in the rest of them and saying, like, hey, if that person can create something, I can create something as well.
And so Lawton, you're your demo is kids, right? These are users that are engaging with games all the time. Yeah. And I'm wondering, so like the path to gamification would seem more obvious for a product like Literal, but I'm wondering how you think about reading and dopamine triggers and just sort of like fitting content into the type of like brain patterns that kids are used to.
So I would say Literal is unique, even here on the stage, because we're targeting education in the US. Like our primary go-to-market strategy right now is to get dynamic product in front of teenagers. The problem is education is required and it's rigorous, right? There are expectations, like the students that get assigned reading on Literal did not choose to be there, right? They did not choose that book necessarily. And this is one of the major problems in education today is it's not something that people necessarily opt into. They opt into it emotionally at some point. You want to try and win them over, but they're there out of necessity. And so within this very structured, rigorous framework that does not value gamification, I mean, if you think about it like the immediate rewards, for example, that you get, gaming by and large is driven by a pass, fail, succeed, right? You die at the end of a level, you regenerate, you get to start over again. Well, in education, you don't know if you've passed the year until you've passed the year. So, I mean, who wants to play Candy Crush if it takes you 12 months to level up? Right? I mean, it's a very different environment to try and leverage game mechanics in. And so within the confines of this very rigorous academic framework, Literal is really bringing in elements from streaming media services and even things like TikTok, where you try and drive unpredictability. You empower the student to choose what they want to read in the platform. Literal is built like a Netflix for reading. It even looks very similar to Netflix. So as the students log in, they are empowered to browse the content catalog to find something that's of interest to them. We also have introduced elements of creativity into the platform. So for those of you who haven't tried Literal yet, it's literalapp.com, and what we do is we take a book, we identify every character in the book, and we give each of those characters a digital avatar. So there's a face to put with every name. We assign those avatars by default, but we enable the students to recast the characters that are in the book, which gives them a sense of ownership over a piece of literature that they may not have opted into or chosen on their own, but yet they can still feel some sort of ownership or participation in the process. And as we watch our user sessions and all the kids coming through the platform, when they first onboard, they spend the most time choosing a profile picture. It's insane. Like we watch these 13-year-olds come into the platform that's all anonymous data, so we don't know who they are. But they'll upload a picture, and then they'll upload another one, and they'll upload another one, and they want ownership. They want to be involved in what they're doing. And education, because it's all driven by assignments and requirements, they simply don't have that opportunity. So we're looking for ways to introduce more ownership, more creativity into the process of engaging in a very linear narrative.
Yeah, so sort of meeting kids where they are and their entertainment consumption preferences.
Yeah, playing to their preferences.
Like the character creation flow from a game. So Dave, let's talk a little bit about sports, gamification of sports. Like this one seems more obvious and more natural, yet traditional sports is, it's all about rights and broadcasters. It's actually a very conservative environment. And I'd love for you to kind of tell the audience what you're doing on the gamification side with Karate Combat, but also how is it kind of impacting fandom, and what are you seeing just from an engagement perspective in these patterns when you offer up these play mechanics around the content?
Yeah, my pleasure. So at Karate Combat, we built from the ground up to appeal to a younger demo that grew up playing games, using social media all day, and they do not sit down for 4 hours and watch sports like a passive consumer. It's like, they're watching on their phone, they're watching highlights, they gamble on sports at a way higher rate than older generations. And we, our thesis is that we can take our large awareness and accelerate the transformation into obsession, super fandom by financializing things, gamifying things with this, younger audience. And we did. We went all the way with it on the Web3 side of things. We tokenized the league so that we could create this no-loss gambling on every single fight. So it's definitely on the black hat side of the spectrum, but I would say less black hat than regulated gambling. The token holders vote on which fighters they think are going to win each fight, and when they vote on winning fighters, they earn more tokens. However, there's only 2 days to make your picks. If you don't make your picks, you lose out on all the upside. It's very easy to do. Over time, we really want to make these token holders feel like they are the owners of the league.
And do you have maybe A/B test data is not the right framing, but consumption on linear channels like YouTube versus in your app when they're kind of voting on outcomes of fights? What do you see around the engagement side?
Yeah, so it's pretty early. We've had 3 events since Up Only Gaming went live. The retention has been very good, in my opinion. So we have a long gaps between our events, 5 to 6 weeks between our events. And one of the between event 2 and 3, we had almost 2.5 months, unfortunately. But we're seeing retention of 40 to 50% between these events. So I think that's a really good early sign. Our audience numbers are very large, so it's a little bit hard to discern the impact directly from the Web3 side of things, but anecdotally, the people who are playing, a lot of them are new fans. They're really enjoying it. They're researching the fighters ahead of time, and they're getting really emotionally invested in the outcome of the fights because if they guess correctly, they get more money.
So Emily, I want to take it to you a little bit from a product development perspective. So you come from games. The product you're building is kind of in the design space. There have been a lot of successful games around a design theme. But what you're doing is more like a gamified Pinterest in some ways. And so you could approach this as game first or app first. And I'm just wondering, how do you think about sequencing some of those product decisions, knowing you're heading towards gamification? What comes first, and how do you assess signal early in the development process?
Yeah, so we're building a design decoration app/game, and just my co-founder and myself, we came from mobile gaming, and I spent last 5 years in lifestyle gaming genre. So across this, my whole career, I've seen how the female audiences evolved from playing really simple Invest and Express, casual match 3, these kind of games, to something different, something that is more tied to real life interests like fashion or interior design or food. And so we saw a huge opportunity into broadening that, from gaming subgenre to something that is more of a content discovery platform, and eventually also something to be shopping on. So we come from kind of a gaming angle, and that's how we built our MVP at first. And that creates really kind of stickiness. So you design, a room, a space, you submit, and then you go through a community voting, you get validation socially. So this kind of, very powerful gamified loop creates stickiness and engagement. But also we kind of take cues and hints from lots of different platforms out there, Pinterest, for example, in Instagram also. And these platforms, you can discover content that's really tied to your real life in photorealistic or just, photographic kind of a format. And you can also look at kind of an e-commerce kind of platform where you discover, content and products, and you shop. And we want to provide a kind of a platform into, sort of women can do basically play with content and also do other activities, utilities, like productivity as well as shopping within one platform. But, when we look at our product development, we first and foremost, we look at stickiness and engagement first, because that's kind of kind of core to the experience of play. So we want to create entertainment experience first, and then we want to layer in different activities and different kind of motivations around social and e-commerce, and create that kind of an environment. But yeah, because our core kind of foundation is play, we look at it heavily from gaming angle, and that's our kind of first stab at it.
Cool. Well, I think, what's interesting about this theme is that what we've seen generally around gamification is pretty thin, right? It's like, oh, I have leaderboards in my product, I have loyalty points. It's pretty light, and it's clear you can go really deep on this from a design perspective. And I wonder if you all could just situate this for me as an edge from a business perspective, or how core is this to actually driving business outcomes, whether LTV or retention or whatever the key signal is for the nature of your companies?
Can I jump in on that? So I'm going to talk epic meaning for a moment. Reading scores in education in the United States, the US government just released a report called the National Assessment of Educational Progress. This evaluates the academic achievement of students in the United States. We're primarily interested in grades 6 through 12, so middle grade, upper grade, adolescence, essentially. And the numbers have been in decline for several years, but the most recent report, looking at the 2022 performance of students in the US, has reading scores, this is going to blow your mind, at 1972 levels. So if you look at the amount of budget spent in American education, and you multiply that per year, and you multiply that times 50 years, and we haven't progressed at all, I think figuring out game mechanics in education is imperative to the success of students. Now, we're focused on the American market right now, but this is a global problem, right? I mean, to David's point earlier about, younger consumers understand these dynamics, and it looks like older consumers too understand these dynamics. We need to harness them if we're going to reverse these declining trends. When there's been no innovation in a space for an extended period of time, it's imperative to try and figure that out, and that's what we're doing.
So, in service of the mission, not just the business.
Yeah.
Or do you want to jump in?
I guess everybody is susceptible to game mechanics. Obviously, in education, it would be amazing. I would have been the first one to study more. I wasn't the best student. In the case of seniors, I guess, you get, how to put this? You get a lot of things they know they should be doing, just like young kids reading, let's say, which they don't because they don't get any reward out of it. But for example, one thing we're planning to do, and we haven't done it due to resources, but is giving them these kind of bubbles which you end up covering if you do certain activities. So let's say walking is a big thing for them. So if you accomplish whatever amount of walking activities in a week, you'll get that bubble. If not, you won't get it. So you already have a relevance in this community, and people see your profile every day. So if you don't have this, you'll feel like not only you're giving, putting yourself down, but people see that you're not accomplishing your goals. That with culture, that with whatever thing you're trying to accomplish in the platform. So these type of things, I guess it has no limit to where it can get,
So white hat and black hat on that one, I guess. Interesting. Okay, well, watching our monitor, we're over time. I want to thank the panelists all for coming and encourage all of you to grab them on sidebars because their businesses are really, really fascinating. And this is kind of the early days of pioneering product designs in some really big categories in need of innovation. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the panel too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Player, give me some room.